Well, hello everyone. Thank you for watching, and we're delighted that we are in 2015. We're alive and well. We still have our Constitution. We still have the Word of God, and we still have the power of God, and our nation is going to see a change, and the wind of God is going to get behind our back. Have a great program for you today. I'm going to reveal to you what we're up against with the war on a civilized nation within our nation. The war has been declared by American Islamists, their organizations, the Communist Party, now terrorizing our streets and threatening our police and endangering our safety. You cannot believe the lie. You cannot believe the propaganda. You've got to look through the maze, get in agreement with the truth, and stand with the truth. People are being deceived, and we are watching the media carry the water of the Communist Party, of the Black Panthers, and Al Sharpton's ability to organize, literally organize mobs that are destroying America with the support of our government. Cannot have it that way. We have law enforcement, we have a military, we have rules and regulations, and we must make a transition that the people who are elected to office are going to enforce the laws of this land, keep the people safe. If you today are in a crime-infested neighborhood, if you, and I know we're on 5 to 6 times a week in Chicago, and I'm hearing from so many of you in Chicago, if you are in a Valerie Jarrett slum or a Hillary Clinton village, and you're being made to believe that because of that you're black or you're poor, which could be any race, that this is all that you have to live for. There is nothing else for you. This is the end of your line. If you are in where crime is prevalent, roaches are everywhere, and you are being made to believe this is all you're ever going to have. Well, I have good news for you today. You don't have to stay there. You don't have to be told that this is all you are qualified for. God has a bigger plan for you, and I am planning to walk some of you out of Egypt, out of the valley, with giving you an understanding that God's Word, His promises, work for you. We have a blessed nation. We're going to keep that nation. And today our program is dynamic. So go tell your friends that Faye is on. It's time to pull down some strongholds over this nation. And this, I am Faye Harding, and this is You know, in my ministry, we deal with so many negative things, and we deal with facts, which sometimes are very, very discouraging and frightening. We deal with a lot of disappointments in people that we trust in leadership and in government. And we deal with people who line themselves up with lies and propaganda that this nation has been so good to. But on our program, in our weekly prayer bulletins, in other television interviews, what I know works is that if you portray truth, it dispels lies better than arguing with the liars to no avail. What is happening in America now is a national disgrace. The people of this country don't deserve it. We didn't ask for it. We trusted, and we've been set up. We have a war on our law enforcement while defending the most corrupt leaders that our nation has ever seen. They're in all facets of our government, but they also are hands extended from federal agencies dealing with Marxist, communist organizations, Black Muslim Panthers, Louis Farrakhan Black Muslims, and we have a Department of Homeland Security that has flooded this nation with Middle East Muslims in refugee camps in every state nationwide. We had Jay Johnson, the Department of Homeland Security, facilitated 66,000 people invasion, victims of drug traffickers and human traffickers, and their locations are set up that it was a prepared invasion of our country. We're just not being told the truth. But the people that are being exploited more than anyone else are the African American communities. And today, I want to bring you back to your humble beginnings in civil rights. I'm going to read you part of the speech of I Have a Dream, Martin Luther King Jr. Won't be able to get it all in because I only have 24 minutes. But while I'm reading you his words, we're going to put on the screen the reality of what's actually taking place, empowered by quote, quote, civil rights leaders today, and supported by our Justice Department, Department of Homeland Security, and the Office of the President of the United States. I want the contrast to come to our viewers, our African American pastors, and people who are being brought in to lies, and they are being courted and manipulated by wealthy attorneys that have a marketing plan to exploit tragic incidences with the black community. $10 million lawyers that was here for the Trayvon Martin case. They walked out, multi-millionaires here. It's worked, so now they have an empire that walks in. But the goal is to destroy our law enforcement communities. We cannot allow this to happen. Don't be deceived. Don't join the crowd. As I read to you now, a civil rights leader that was a civil rights leader's words, contrasted to what is taking place today. I believe that Martin Luther King Jr. is turning over in his grave. Let's just look at the difference. I'm happy to join with you today, and this was a certified speech, and I have a dream speech, August 28th, 1963, at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. I'm happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 50 years ago, a great American, in whom symbolic shadow we stand, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice, came as a joyous daybreak to the end of the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation, the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society, finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as our citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We've also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. There's no time to engage the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from dark and the desolate valley of segregation to sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of radical injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. The sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is the invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hoped that the Negro needed to blow off steam will now be content, will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. There will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will come to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrong deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative process to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to a distrust of all white people, for many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. And they have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone. As we walk, we must make the pledge that we shall always march ahead. We cannot turn back. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? We can never be satisfied as long as the Negro is the victim of the unspeakable horrors of police brutality. We can never be satisfied as long as our bodies, heavy with the fatigue of travel, cannot gain lodging in motels of the highways and hotels in the cities. We cannot be satisfied as long as the Negro's basic mobility is from a smaller ghetto to a larger one. We cannot be satisfied as long as our children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by signs and stating, "For whites only." We cannot be satisfied as long as a Negro in Mississippi cannot vote and a Negro in New York believes that he has nothing for which to vote. We are not satisfied. We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness. I want you to listen to that word, righteousness, like a mighty stream. I am not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from the narrow jail cells. Some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom left you battered by the storms of persecution, staggered by the winds of police brutality. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is redemptive. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Back to the slums and the ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will change. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair, I say to you today, my friends. And so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
Enter your email address and receive Faye's e-action alerts. Like Faye on Facebook at Facebook/FayeUSA and Twitter #FayeUSA. This broadcast streams online at insightUSA.tv.
I really felt led to share with you the dream, most of the dream of Martin Luther King Jr. If you'd like to have a copy of that, you can call our office or email us. We'll be glad to send it to you if you'll just cover the cost of the mail-in and the copies, just a donation. What I need to do now is show you what we are up against, and these are your new civil rights leaders. When the Trayvon Martin case started in Sanford, Florida, a couple years ago, I lived 5 miles from there. I'd never seen such propaganda and such an abuse of a tragic situation by people that were sent here to Florida to market and to capitalize on the death of this young man. The crime in the area was extraordinary. The home invasions in the community he was in visiting his father was epidemic. And there was a reason for people to be watching out for their neighborhoods because so many of them had been robbed. Many home invasion victims are beaten, murdered, and it's not something you play with. But the Trayvon Martin case was presented in a totally different light than its reality. What happened is, I just want to show you what came about there. The Black Panthers, the black Muslims, were sent in to train the young black guys to stir up strife and contention and incite riots. The leader was named Mikhail Muhammad. He's the Southern Regional Minister of the new Black Panther Party, and he told the Daily Caller that he thinks that the DOJ's decision to get involved in this case came a little too late. The DOJ, which had no business getting in it at all, but the power of the Panthers takes you straight to those who are leading our nation. You and I would never have this kind of opportunity or doors open to us. But the Panthers absolutely have a gateway to, and Muslim leaders with care, Muslim mosque imams have the pathway to the inside track of the major leaders of our nation, and you wonder how they got it and why. The DOJ didn't decide to get involved until after the Democratic Representative Corrine Brown pressed Holder for federal help in the case. And I'm gonna not read this all. If you want our points that we read, you can call and ask for exactly what we're doing. And again, if you'll cover the cost of the printing, they're all sourced. I don't make up anything. I don't put it in another format. This is sourced. But this is what happened when Mikhail Muhammad got involved, calling the Department of Justice down on the police department in Sanford, Florida, a very small town. It says, embattled Florida police chief steps down temporarily because the mob was brought in. It was bussed in. The Muslims were bussed in. The people who threatened our law enforcement officers, our governor, the citizens of this state were not from the state. They are mobs that are being organized by civil rights leaders to go in and create an insight, because the bigger the crowd, the greater the payout. They always take with them, and in Ferguson, this attorney is there. The attorney that represented the Trayvon Martin family walked out of this state with millions of dollars. Trayvon Martin's incident was worth millions. His name is make a fashion statement. Here we go. Do you feel George Zimmerman is a racist? Make a fashion statement to let the world know how you feel. The issue of race in America was clearly illustrated in the attention of African Americans paid to the Zimmerman trial. And it goes on. The attorneys, if Zimmerman thought he was going to live out his days, forget it. The attorneys, especially if Parks and Crump, the attorneys of Trayvon Martin's family at law, the attorneys at law have anything to say in the matter. Parks and Crump, which specializes in personal injury cases, happens to be one of the nation's top black law firms. Expert in civil rights, is the reason Trayvon was packing a bag of Skittles and a can of Arizona tea. Partners Darryl Parks and Benjamin Crump have been the most visible of the firms and the 6-member team. They would not publish the payout, the settlement, but these two men are worth over $10 million. I want you to stay tuned because I'm going to show you how they used Trayvon Martin to make a statement to cash in on any situation that they can redefine as racist. I'll be right back. Well, we're calling in new partners, and we really need you to step up to the plate. Help us stay on your station. I had the privilege of meeting Congressman Stephen Pierce in Albuquerque a few weeks ago. His speech was unbelievable. His life is even more unbelievable. We need this in the hands of men. We need this in the hands of those looking for jobs or people who are discouraged. So for everyone who will make a donation or become a monthly partner of $100 or a partner in any amount that exceeds $50 a year, I want you to request this book. Today, I need at least 25 people that will write a check for $1,000. Help us stay on our stations and not have to change. I know God showed me a $100,000 donor. We have the truth. We're taking it to the airways. You are listening. So let me hear from you today. There's a photo of Attorney Crump on the screen. I just want to show you what they have done with the Trayvon Martin case. The Parks and Crump camp helped to create a Justice for Trayvon industry consisting of protest paraphernalia that includes hoodies, sweatshirts, bumper stickers. The law firm proved to be instrumental in establishing the Trayvon Martin Foundation with donations totaling an estimated $5 million. Crump is a principal with the Tallahassee-based firm. He was initially contacted by Tracy Martin's cousin. The Trayvon Martin Foundation was established to keep this issue alive. It is the vehicle through which Trayvon's parents and their attorneys travel and work to create awareness of how violent crime impacts families of victims and to provide support for the bereaved family. The foundation seeks to advocate that crime victims and their families be not ignored. It is an absolute industry, and they've played on the most tragic incident, but what they want to go after are the police. The Black Panthers, if you could read what their goals are, and you need to write me and say, Faye, what are the goals of the Black Panthers? You will be shocked at what we are funding and supporting. The white Reds are now exploiting the blacks. This is the white Communist Party, and their goals is to overthrow the American government. The Black Panthers' goals is to overthrow the American government. The Muslim Brotherhood and more black Muslims, their goal is to overthrow the Muslim Brotherhood. I'm asking you today, will you help me get to the governors of the United States, every one, have them go in and take back their states. These people couldn't do this if they didn't have the juggernaut of the complete United States by federal agencies, billions and trillions of dollars with no accountability to the states, although everything they do has to do with a state. We've got all of the refugees in places that were set up for them before Jay Johnson brought them to the United States from South America. Jihad in our streets is the goal. My friends, if you've got a black friend, if you know a black pastor, I am asking you, you go back and you realign yourself with Martin Luther King Jr. and with the United States of America. I look forward to hearing from you. Hi, I just want to take a minute and invite you to become a partner with me and help me do what God is calling me to do, unlike anyone else in Christian television. I'm holding the refugee camps that are holding Middle East Muslims in every state in the United States. Our governors must go in and find out who the federal government has dumped into their states. You must understand how the Constitution works. We still have it. Today, I need for everybody that's watching this program to write a check or to call our office and do a credit card charge and donate to help us with $20,000 in arrears for 2014. We should not be that way. God has blessed you, so today, will you stand with prayer, faith, and action in America?
Faye wants to hear from you. Her desire to see America come out of exile is raising up one of the most powerful, informed, anointed, and united prayer networks in America for America. She is organizing Christians for the U.S. Constitution to give uncompromising believers back their voice and witness. If this program has blessed you and you believe in what Faye is doing, contact her, pray with and for her, partner with her. She would love for you to host an Insight rally in your church or city. Organize an Intercessors with Insight prayer team or join one. For a complimentary pocket-sized constitution or Faye's fax, call or email Faye 407-265-0700 or faye.usainsight@gmail.com. Write Insight USA, P.O. Box 917689, Longwood, Florida 32791.